we'll start with you, Steve. This Rutgers bunch, you started to delve into it a little bit, but that was pretty much a Michigan first half, what you would expect of Michigan. You know, they ran it 90% of the time. They hit on a couple big pass plays, had seemingly control of the game. Rutgers could do little on offense. They had one decent drive for a field goal, and then they pretty much switched uniforms in the second half. And if Rutgers could have had some kind of explosion on offense, just one explosive play, that's all they needed. They dominated Michigan in the second half, but of course they couldn't quite get there, and they had a first and goal that they blew as well with about 10 minutes left in the game. But Rutgers acquitted themselves very nicely.
Yeah, on the whole, they played pretty well. They outgained Michigan, I want to say 220-40 in the second half, and had it down there close 3 different times in the fourth quarter. They missed a short field goal that would have cut it to 20-16. Not that that would have helped them win the game necessarily. That was when they were first and goal. They needed to put that one in the end zone. They went away from running the football right at Michigan and tried to throw it. And that's not Noah Vedral's strong suit. He's actually not bad as a runner, to be honest with you. I think he's got Aaron Cruikshank and he's got Bo Melton, who are decent enough veteran receivers, cagey guys that will make a few plays, but I just don't see where they take the top off the defense very often. So I think that's kind of plays to Ohio State's strengths perhaps a little bit. Then on the possessions after that, I think they gave it up on downs at about the 38-yard line on a fourth down, and then finally fumbled with about a minute and a half to go. Their last gasp, fumbled, and that was their first turnover, I believe, of the year for Rutgers in 4 games. So they're not a team that's going to help you out by turning it over, being loose with the football. So they gave Michigan every bit of fight that Michigan could handle. Michigan had a lot of weaknesses that were exposed in that game. They were not able to particularly establish the run against Michigan. I think less than 100 yards rushing, I think, for Michigan in that game. And I don't know, it just seemed like a weird game. Michigan got out of there with the win, 20-13, but Rutgers wasn't, for a team that we've seen in past years just get decimated one game after another against Big Ten opponents. Just a little bit more competitive this time around.
Yeah, I don't think this is the Rutgers teams that we were used to seeing between Schiano and Schiano. I think this team has taken some steps forward, but let's slow our roll on Noah Vedral, who threw for 300 and something yards against Delaware out of the FCS and is averaging about $145 throwing the ball against Division I FBS teams. Let's slow our roll in terms of what Rutgers is able to do defensively in terms of against the pass when the teams that it's faced have been in the 70s, 80s, and the 110s in terms of throwing the ball. I think that there's, we love to look at the stats to find trends, and sometimes we can't go too far down that road because Ohio State played Tulsa, a team that had not scored a passing touchdown and then scored 2 against Ohio State. So you just never really know at this point. But Rutgers doesn't have the offense to be able to hang with Ohio State. Even if Ohio State takes 2 steps backwards on defense, I don't see a Rutgers offense that's going to be able to win a 38-35 type of game. But I've gone through the previous 7 games and just where Ohio State has really been able to hold the edge, and I'm talking slow to try and get to my numbers that I have here. In 7 previous games, Rutgers has rushed for 110.4 yards per game against Ohio State and thrown for 132.6. So for those of you who don't want to do the math there, that's 243. So not really going to get it done. And Ohio State has averaged 278 a game on the ground and 307.7 in the air. I'm not saying that we can just sit there and say this is what's going to happen because this is what happened in 2014 and 15 and 16. But I think that Rutgers still needs to get some more guys, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Leonte Carew is not walking through that door.
No, Mohamed Sanu is not walking through that door. I think the approach last week against Michigan was very conservative, and you can do that against Michigan. I don't know how conservative you can be against Ohio State on offense. We saw Greg Schiano pull out all of the stops last year, special teams, offense, defense, whatever they could do to try and steal possessions, steal points. And I don't know that he needs to try to do all of that this week. I know Ohio State will be looking for it, but you're talking about an Ohio State offense that is, putting up 550 yards, 45 points, 40 points, whatever it is. Like, you can't expect to hold them to 24 and win 27-24. Like, you're going to have to take more risks, I think, than they did against Michigan. Ohio State's defense will need to capitalize on those risks. That hasn't happened this season. We'll see how much better they are. Whatever they did against Akron, who cares? What do they look like against Rutgers with, no Vedral? He's fine, but again, he's not the deep threat guy. Like, he can pick up some first downs. They'll run him. Shoot, they may run him 22 times in this game, just trying to pick up short yardage first downs and keep the ball moving and keep the clock ticking. But eventually that's going to be tough to do against Ohio State's defense that is looking for it. So I think they're going to have to take some risks, and we'll see how short up this Ohio State secondary is. Talking to the coaches yesterday, they feel a lot better about it now. Things are falling into place. I think we all see that, but now it's time to see the results of that. And it's nice that they know who they want to put everywhere, but now those guys have to be good in those spots, and we'll find out just how good they are on Saturday. But even that won't be the stiffest test.
Anything on the Scarlet Knights, Kevin?
Yeah, talked about
anything
them.
else. You got the story. That's right. We've hit you all three. It was so scintillating, Kevin.
That's
you had me mesmerized.
They're better than usual, but
yes,
they're still not that good. I mean,
I do remember now. You did talk.
Crying about that, the fact that they think that this is 100% going to be that upset. I just don't think that they've watched a lot of football.
This is what I got out of the Michigan game, was that Michigan came out, they're stubborn, they do what they do. Until you stop us running the football, we're not even going to think about switching to that play in our playbook that we throw the ball. So Michigan threw it like 11 times like they typically do. I think it was 16, actually. Wow. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they seem to run the same play. I'm watching this game in and out, but then I go back and I watch the cut up version, and they basically run the same running play over and over. The window dressing looks different, but basically they're doing the same thing every play. And Greg Schiano, as I was listening to you, Kevin, there was before Schiano, after Schiano, there's Schiano, and there's everyone else at Rutgers football, because the guy has proven he can coach. He can evaluate a roster, go and pluck players from other teams in the Big Ten and elsewhere and say, this is going to help me build a team pretty quickly. And they're solid. Like, they look like a football team now, where they just looked completely incapable of anything. They're competent, they're capable, they're strong along the line of scrimmage. They know what they're doing, but they're not explosive. They're not going to wow anyone. They look destined to Rutgers, vintage Rutgers, quick lane bowl level, Big Ten football is what they'll probably turn out to be. They got to go 3-6 in the conference to get to a bowl game. But at least it appeared as though, after being completely outplayed in the first half, but staying in the game, they made adjustments. Michigan was running like crossing routes, getting explosive passing plays in the first half. That was shut down. Michigan was running the ball effectively, not for huge gains, but effectively in the first half. Shut down. Rutgers completely, again, he outcoached Harbaugh. He just didn't have enough talent or that one explosive play that he needed to flip the game. But it was pretty impressive what Rutgers did. I'll set up our next point of conversation here. Would be, if Rutgers is still the worst team in the division and they played that game, and Michigan's the fill in the blank in the division, third or fourth best team in the division probably, I still believe Ohio State has the capability of separating itself from the rest of the Big Ten, but they have yet to do so. I think Penn State is, to me, the biggest certainty that they're going to be good, that they're solid, good, probably the second or third best team in the conference, but maybe the best team in the conference. But if somebody said, who's going to win a playoff game? If there's going to be a playoff game won by the Big Ten, I'd say Ohio State. But if somebody said, who are you sure is going to go 9-3, maybe 10-2, I'd say Penn State. But the way this is sizing up, if Ohio State doesn't get any better and play to its potential, this 7-team, I don't know what the math equation on 7 teams playing each other all once, whatever that is, 40 games roughly. It's going to be a free-for-all. It's going to be fun to watch. Like, every game's unpredictable, pretty much, Tony.
Yeah, and you've got I'm just looking at Michigan's schedule yesterday, recording our Michigan Monday podcast, and their only sure win the rest of the way out is Northwestern at home. Everything else could be a toss-up, and they're not alone in that. Iowa playing at Maryland this week is sneaky and one to watch, because who knows how good Maryland is in the East, but we know they have some talent to make life difficult. And when you're talking about an Ohio State defense that gave up 400 yards passing to Tulsa, what does Maryland do when they come in throwing for 330 yards a game or whatever, leading the Big Ten? There may not be some of these matchups just may not be good matchups. Like, getting Maryland later on in the season is good for Ohio State. Getting them like 3 weeks ago probably wouldn't have been. And who knows what that secondary would have looked like. And yeah, just each week there's just games to keep an eye on, because there's nobody is so good. And maybe Ohio State has way more talent than anybody else. But if the scheme and the execution isn't there, then the talent is minimized some, and you come far enough back to the pack. But like Penn State, I don't know why they can't run the ball. There are issues for each of these teams, but those issues also allow in cracks that other teams can exploit and take advantage of. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fascinating. Usually it's the West that is all jumbled together. This year, maybe it's the East more so.